After 7 hidden years, a single mom reveals a shocking truth to a billionaire: your blood is his. The rain fell heavy against the window, as if mirroring Sarah's tumultuous thoughts. Each droplet was a reminder of the secrets she had carried for years, weighty, silent truths. She stood behind the counter of the diner, scrubbing stubborn stains off the countertop, while her mind raced. Just outside, a bright red sports car pulled up. Her heart skipped painfully when she recognized the figure stepping out, a man who had once represented her dreams, now only a distant memory cast in shadows. Daniel McKnight, wealthy, influential, and utterly out of reach. The diner fell still as he walked in, sunlight refracting off his tailored suit, the stark contrast of his world against hers nearly paralyzing. For the briefest moment, their eyes met, and a cold shiver ran down her spine. Memories of their past together flooded back, fully formed, laughter, whims of youth, and a love that had felt infinite. But that was a different life, a different Sarah. Now, she was a single mother with bills piled high and a spirited son, Jake, who deserved the world but only knew struggle. What would Jake think if he knew the truth? The truth that Daniel was his father, a specter always lurking in the background of their lives. That admission twisted Sarah's stomach. It was a burden she had feared for so long, choking her resolve with its weight. Did she dare expose their son to a world he didn't ask for? Beneath her determination lay seeds of doubt, her protective instincts colliding with a flicker of hope. Could this be the chance to bring some semblance of stability to their lives, or would it only open up old wounds? "Hey, Sarah." A regular called, breaking her reverie. She turned to him, plastering on her waitress smile, desperate not to let her thoughts betray her. Each interaction was a delicate dance, balancing professionalism and the chaos swirling inside her. As she carried trays of coffee and pie, Sarah's mind was in turmoil. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But Daniel's presence lingered like a storm cloud, summoning all of her fears to the surface. What if he wanted nothing to do with Jake? Or worse, what if he did? The mere idea sent a jolt of anguish through her. Could she trust a man who had never shown interest in their son? Her breath quickened as the invisible walls of her solitary struggle seemed to close in. Every second stretched into a decade. The waitress apron hugged her waist tightly, as if it could snuff out the flicker of ambition and independence that threatened to burst forth. In a life where she fought for every bit of love and warmth, the thought of Daniel stepping back into their lives created a conflict far scarier than the bills stacking on the kitchen table. As she wiped the counter one last time, her fingers trembled against the cool surface. Chance encounters could shift everything. She realized how fragile their reality was and how just one call could bridge the chasm between her life and his. A sense of urgency constricted her chest. She knew the moment was approaching, one that could redefine what family meant for her and Jake. The weight of the choice ahead threatened to crush her. With a shaky breath, she clutched her phone harder, feeling the breath of possibility slipping through her fingers. Would she reveal the truth that could rip the curtains off their makeshift sanctuary, or hold fast to the fragile life they had built alone? Sarah's hands trembled, not just from the weight of the decision looming ahead, but also from a sense of awareness she hadn't felt in years. The diner felt claustrophobic, as if its four walls were closing in on her. She glanced at Daniel, still nursing a coffee at the corner table, and a shiver of unbidden memories coursed through her. Dreams shared, futures planned, a life that could have been. Turning away, she focused instead on the routine of her work, sliding plates across the counter with practiced ease. Yet, each clatter echoed with unexpressed emotions, a stark reminder of what awaited her outside the diner, the possibility of confronting her past. "Hey, everything all right?" one of the regulars asked, giving her a gentle nudge. It was a simple question, one that demanded simple honesty. But the truth piled up, dense and heavy in her throat. She forced a smile, the mask of a waitress expertly crafted to hide her turmoil. "Yeah, just a busy day," she replied, but inside, doubt gnawed at her. Later, as the sun dipped and gave way to the soft glow of neon lights, Sarah leaned against the counter, contemplating the call she had been avoiding. Her phone buzzed softly in her pocket, vibrating against her resolve. Would it be pushing too far to reach out to Daniel? Or would it be an opportunity to redefine their story? A deep breath steadied her. She had lived years in the shadow of uncertainty. It was time to take control. The thought of Jake flooded her mind, his laughter, his dreams, and how fiercely she had fought to provide for him. What if? Echoed through her, it gnawed at her like a relentless tide. What if this one act could change everything for him? What if it shattered him? Resolute, Sarah stepped into the back room, the sounds of clinking dishes fading behind her. She paced the confined space, running through the mental lists, the pros and cons. It felt like an endless loop. Confronting Daniel while tipping the balance between stability and chaos became an agonizing crossroads. No matter what, she needed to assess what she wanted for herself and for Jake. Suddenly, her determination wavered, and she sank onto a stool, the weight of her choices heavy. In the quiet of the back room, she thought about the woman she once was, full of dreams, unafraid to chase after them. Life had dulled that fire, but was it truly extinguished? The sound of the diner door swinging open startled her. She rushed back, pulling herself together. Daniel sat in the same booth, his expression unreadable. She felt a magnetic pull toward him, mingled with the echo of suppressed feelings. "Do you have a moment?" he asked, his voice low but carrying a note of urgency. Every ounce of nerve stirred inside her, her heart racing. "Yes," she replied, barely above a whisper. It was now or never. As she approached, intent on confronting her fears and the truth, she hesitated. But one glance into his deep-set eyes fueled something within her. There was a flicker of hope, strangled but alive. "Can we talk about Jake?" The question hung in the air, heavy with potential repercussions. In that moment, the walls of her solitary existence began to tremble, revealing something newly terrifying. Together they could reshape their stories. But would they? Would breaking the silence redesign the family landscape, or bury it under unanticipated rubble? Ultimately, she felt her own hesitance, an internal struggle igniting. The time had come to face what she had hidden, knowing that whatever came next would demand all of her strength. As Daniel's gaze intensified, a sense of certainty pierced through her doubts. She was ready to step onto this uncertain path and decipher what lay ahead for them, and for Jake. But as the contours of her past loomed larger than ever, Sarah questioned, what revelations would come to light, and would they be the catalyst for growth or the cause of their ultimate downfall? Sarah's heart raced in her chest as she took a step closer to Daniel. The diner's hum around her faded, leaving only the thudding of her pulse in her ears. She could see the uncertainty in his eyes, reflecting the apprehension that churned in her stomach. The prospect of discussing Jake felt monumental, as if it would shatter the fragile equilibrium she had managed to maintain. "Jake?" Daniel repeated softly, his brow furrowing as if trying to navigate uncharted territory. "What do you want to say?" The question dredged up all the buried emotions. "I've been thinking about him a lot lately, about us," she admitted, her voice cracking. Daniel shifted in his seat, leaning forward slightly. "What do you mean?" "I thought we agreed yes, but things have changed." "I've changed," she interrupted, gathering her courage. The weight of the years spent apart bore down on her. Each day had been a lesson wrapped in loss, and she was finally ready to share the truth she'd held for so long. "Jake deserves to know who his father is." The air in the diner felt electric. A late-night cab pulled up outside, and the sound of a crow cawing in the distance only added to the gravity of the moment. Daniel's expression hardened suddenly, a mask of defense slipping into place. I thought we were shielding him from what? The truth? Sarah's voice rose slightly, a tremor of frustration mingling with her fear. You think it's easier for him to grow up without knowing? How do we define family? Is it just about blood, or is it about love and support? I need you to understand that Jake is not just your son by accident, he is your son by every choice I made to ensure he could have a better life. Do you think I wanted to be absent? His tone was sharp, the question a painful reminder of their shared history. I know you didn't choose this, Sarah replied, her chest tightening. But Jake deserves to know you, all of you, and we both deserve clarity. For so long, I've made decisions based on fear, not just for myself but for him. It's exhausting. I can't keep running away from this. Daniel straightened, the hurt in his eyes flickering. And what if he doesn't want to meet me? What if I'm not the father he needs? The vulnerability in his question hung between them, thickening the air. You won't know until you try, she urged, the desperation in her voice palpable. I know I'm asking a lot, but this is about more than just us. It's about Jake's future. He could benefit from knowing you, having a relationship, a father who cares. A silence enveloped them, heavy and overwhelming. Sarah felt her heart crashing against her ribs, hoping desperately for a breakthrough in their impasse. The realities of her past battles echoed in every heartbeat. She was not that timid woman any longer. The struggle had forged resilience and clarity. Finally, Daniel sighed, visibly wrestling with his emotions. This is more than just a conversation, Sarah. It's a life-changing decision. If you're sure about it, I need to contemplate my role in all of this. His words struck a chord within her, a mix of hope and the terror of potential rejection. I'm prepared to take this leap, Daniel. I can only hope you will join me. As Sarah caught her breath, an unexpected surge of confidence filled her. This was the moment they could redefine their family story. Could it create a bond, or would it tear them apart? She had to believe that this confrontation would lead them toward a more honest future, even if it meant facing uncertainties. Let us take some time to think, he said quietly, his voice softer. I won't rush into this. Just promise me you won't shut the door completely, she replied, her heart aching at the prospect. In that instant, she understood the enormity of the choice before them. As she turned to leave, a sense of foreboding about the aftermath gnawed at her. Deep inside, she felt the anticipation of uncovering a new chapter, and with it, the possibility of hope. Whatever lay ahead promised to challenge everything she believed about family and forgiveness. But the question taunted her, would their past provide the foundation they needed for connection, or would it drive them further apart? And what truly lay ahead if their lives intertwined again? Sarah stepped out into the night, her mind racing faster than her feet could carry her. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if the weight of the conversation lingered in the atmosphere, wrapping around her tightly, making it hard for her to breathe. She had opened a door she once thought was sealed shut, revealing layers of buried emotions she had carefully tucked away. The sound of crickets chirping broke the silence as she paused, leaning against the cool metal frame of her car. Moments like this had eluded her for years, and now here she was, grappling with the realization that change was no longer just a concept, it was happening. She knew she had uncovered something vital tonight, not just about Daniel but about herself. The words she had spoken were not just an attempt to communicate with her past, they were an affirmation of her own awakening. She sank into the driver's seat, breathing deeply as she reflected on the clarity she had gained about her place in the world. The conversation with Daniel didn't only shake the foundations of their relationship, it stirred the very core of Sarah's identity as a mother and a woman. Each struggle she had endured, the lonely nights, the sacrifices, had been a testament to her resilience. Today, she had taken a bold step, confronting deep-seated fears that had remained the ghosts of her past. As she drove through the quiet streets, Sarah couldn't shake the tension pulsing through her. Would Daniel really embrace the idea of knowing Jake? What if he rejected the notion entirely? With each passing block, she felt the faint whispers of doubt creeping in, testing her resolve. She parked her car outside their modest home but remained seated, the engine purring softly as she gathered her thoughts. The idea of family had always been distorted in Sarah's mind, colored by her experiences and struggles. She had fought tooth and nail to carve out a life for Jake, but in doing so, she had often neglected her own needs. Now that she had taken a stand for the truth, she wondered what other steps were required to reclaim the narrative of her life. Again, the question looped in her mind: how would this change the dynamics between Daniel and herself? The vision of a unified family sparked a flicker of hope, but it was interlaced with uncertainty. She wanted to mold that vision into reality, but she was also aware that clarity often brought an emotional cost. After a few moments, Sarah stepped out of the car, the familiar creak of the door bringing her back to the present. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. As she made her way inside, every flicker of light from the windows cast her shadow against the walls, each step echoing a sense of newfound determination and unresolved tension. Once inside, she paused to glance at the framed photographs lining the hallway. Each image captured moments of joy mingled with struggle, evidence of the life they built against the odds. She shouldered the anxiety resting in her gut, knowing she had opened a chapter that could potentially alter Jake's future. Yet, a nagging question disturbed her newfound focus: what would it require to truly welcome Daniel back into their lives? Would she be willing to navigate the turbulent waters of fear and vulnerability once more? As she drifted towards the kitchen, she felt a surge of motivation. Embracing uncertainty could lead to a powerful change or deeper heartbreak. As Sarah grabbed a glass of water, her phone buzzed, startling her. One glance revealed a message from Daniel: "Can we meet tomorrow? I need to talk about this more." Her heart did a flip. This could be the breakthrough they needed, or perhaps just another reminder of the complicated ties that bound them. The time had come to face the realities of their past and the potentially fractured future. Would she be able to steer this swirling chaos into a meaningful path, or would the weight of their history drag them down into uncertainty once again? The answer lay just out of reach, promising to unravel the layers of truth she had yet to explore. This moment, the verge of confrontation, held the key to unraveling the next chapter. The morning sun pierced through the curtains, casting stripes of light across Sarah's bedroom floor. It was the day of the meeting with Daniel, and an unsettling blend of anticipation and dread surged within her. She struggled to gather her thoughts. Her mind was a battleground of fears and hopes, clashing violently with each heartbeat. Would today lead to healing, or would it deepen the rift already gnawing at her? As Sarah prepared for her day, she felt the familiar weight of the responsibilities that her role as a mother piled on her. Jake's laughter echoed through the halls, reminding her of the innocent love that tethered her to a brighter side of life, one that felt increasingly vulnerable as the stakes rose. She opened Jake's door, a smile already forming, but it faltered at the sight of him lost in the world of his toys, blissfully unaware of the gravity of her approaching conversation. Watching him, a swell of determination knotted in her stomach. What Daniel didn't know was not only the truth about Jake but also the fierce love and resilience she had cultivated since he left. Each sacrifice she made, every tear shed, had honed a strength within her, and she wasn't about to allow that strength to waver today. She owed it to Jake, and to herself, to step into this messy conversation head-on. The clock ticked relentlessly, each minute edging her closer to the scheduled confrontation. After breakfast, she meticulously arranged Jake's play area. Every toy in its right place felt like a small act of control in her otherwise spiraling emotions. It was more than just a preparation for his day, it was an unconscious way of preparing herself for the chaos that lay just beyond the door. At precisely 11, Sarah received a message from Daniel confirming their meeting place, a local coffee shop. She looked at Jake, who was now absorbed in a coloring book, and felt a sharp pang of guilt. Would this meeting change the course of their lives? Was she ready to reveal the kind of uncertainty embedded in her heart? The decision to meet felt like a double-edged sword, one that could slice through the fog of misunderstanding or sink her deeper into confusion. She needed to be strategic in her approach. Would she lay all her cards on the table, or only share what she felt was necessary? The thought of opening up her vulnerable side terrified her, but she recognized that she had already come too far to turn back now. As she arrived at the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her, yet it did little to calm the nerves coursing through her veins. She spotted Daniel seated at a corner table, looking more pensive than she remembered. The once charismatic smile seemed overshadowed by lines of worry etched across his face. For a split second, Sarah questioned her decision to meet. What if he wasn't who she needed him to be? What if he didn't care to navigate the complexities she had bounded herself in? Swallowing her fear, she approached the table. Their eyes met, and in that fleeting moment, the weight of their history loomed large, hovering between them like a thick fog. "Sarah," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "Thanks for coming." They exchanged the usual small talk, but each word felt laden with unspoken truths. The hum of the cafe faded into white noise, leaving their shared silence ringing loudly in her ears. Finally, the time came to broach the subject, the moment Sarah had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. She straightened her posture, grappling with the gravity of her next words. "Daniel, there's something crucial we need to discuss about Jake." As she steadied herself, she couldn't shake the thought of where this path might lead. Was she about to dismantle the walls she had built around their lives? Would she find liberation in honesty, or plunge deeper into uncertainty? The air around them shifted, charged with the possibility of revelation. Sarah knew that her next words could alter their lives forever. Would she be able to wield this moment not as a weapon against her past but as a tool for a better future together or apart? And as she opened her mouth to speak, a storm brewed inside her, that could either unleash a warmth of understanding or a tempest of regret. Sarah inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the unspoken truth pressing against her chest. They were teetering on the edge of an abyss filled with uncertainty, and she needed the strength to take the leap. "Daniel," she began, her voice wavering slightly, "I have to tell you something about Jake." As she spoke, she observed Daniel's reaction. His brow furrowed, and his expression shifted from concern to confusion, as if he could sense the tremor beneath her words. Every moment stretched into infinity, and her heartbeat drummed in her ears like an urgent plea for clarity. She could either invite him closer or let the distance between them expand. "Jake is your son," she blurted out, the admission escaping her like a breath she'd been holding for years. The confession hung heavily in the air, and time seemed to freeze as she watched the flicker of shock register on his face. The weight of her decision settled in her stomach, a mix of fear and liberation. The truth was out, she had stepped into the light. Daniel searched her eyes, and for a moment, it seemed as if he might either believe her or deny it outright. She wished she could take a snapshot of his expression, the moment where vulnerability and disbelief collided. "What do you mean, my son?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. There was incredulity in his tone, but beneath that lay a flicker of hope. Perhaps he had always considered the possibility. In that moment, she felt a shift, a crack in the walls she had built around her heart. A rush of emotions surged within her, blurring the boundaries between anger, hope, and fear of abandonment. "I didn't tell you when I found out because I was scared, Daniel. Scared for Jake, scared for us. I thought protecting him would mean keeping you away." Daniel sat back in his chair, the weight of her words settling around them like a heavy blanket. The cafe buzzed with chatter and clinking cups, yet it faded into the background as they each navigated the labyrinth of their feelings. Would he be angry? Would he try to claim the relationship he had missed? "And now?" he asked, swallowing hard. The vulnerability in his voice sparked something in her, a need to drive this conversation towards understanding rather than chaos. "Now," she said, her voice firming, "I need you to know Jake deserves to know who you are, and he deserves to have you in his life if that's what you want. This can't just be about us or the past. It's about him. With each word, she felt herself stepping into a new role, an advocate for Jake rather than a fearful protector. This wasn't just an act of revelation but an invitation for Daniel to reclaim the pieces he never knew belonged to him. The hope in her heart flickered uncertainly. Could they forge a new path amidst the remnants of their old lives? Daniel's expression shifted, the storm that brewed within him calmed into contemplation. "What do you want from me, Sarah?" His voice was a mixture of caution and intrigue. "Do you want me to be a father to Jake?" "Yes," she admitted, a rush of honesty spilling forth. "But it's not just about being a father. I want to work through this together. I want to co-parent if you're willing to take that on. I want us both to be involved in Jake's life fully." The sincerity in her request seemed to hit him hard. It was as if he had been given a choice, a chance to redefine their relationship not just as parents but as individuals who had once been deeply connected. She watched as he collected himself, grappling with the magnitude of her offer. The decision weighed heavily on them both. "I need time to process this," he said thoughtfully, his gaze now more focused. "But I want to meet Jake." With his words, a hint of possibility broke through her anxiety. They had reached an inflection point, the future remained unwritten, filled with both uncertainty and promise. "Okay," she replied, each word infused with an underlying current of hope. But as they lingered on the cusp of a new chapter, a reality settled heavily on her heart. How could she ensure that Jake would navigate this world with the stability he deserved? How could she manage her rising fears alongside the complexity of rekindling a relationship that had been so fractured? And there it was, the crossroads of her resolve and anxiety. Was she ready to give Daniel the chance to step in, to transform the narrative they had written into something she had only dreamed could exist? Time was a relentless tide, pulling them toward a future that remained uncertain, yet tinged with the potential for healing. As they wrapped up the conversation, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the most challenging part was yet to come. How could she prepare herself and Jake for the journey ahead, especially when the truth could open both doors and wounds? With thoughts swirling in her mind like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind, she realized that this path would require collective effort, thick skin, and an abundance of patience. As they parted ways, the weight of her decision loomed large, each step away from the cafe echoing with the promise of tomorrow's challenges. But Sarah recognized that while she could not control every outcome, she possessed the ability to shape her belief in what was to come. She took a deep breath, ready to face whatever else lay ahead. Little did she know, another conversation was on the horizon, a conversation that would challenge everything she thought she understood about love, family, and the choices we make. Sarah paced in circles in her modest living room, her mind a tumultuous sea of uncertainty. The conversation with Daniel echoed in her thoughts, each replay tugging at her heart. She had taken the first undeniably brave step, but what came next felt like a vast and unfamiliar territory. The potential for happiness loomed ahead, yet so did the shadows of past decisions that left scars in places long thought healed. Jake, now 7 years old, was blissfully unaware of the seismic shift occurring just outside his innocent world. With every passing moment, Sarah felt the weight of her role intensifying. It was no longer just about managing her emotions, she had to consider the impact on Jake and the life that was about to change. How could she guide him through this new reality? How could she find the right words to explain a father who had been absent for most of his young life? In the quiet moments, her mind raced with questions. Was she ready for the potential conflicts that could arise? Would Daniel step into his role as a father, or would he hesitate, retreating back into his sphere of wealth and detachment? More importantly, how would Jake react? The thought of introducing him to a father he didn't know filled her with trepidation. As if summoned by her thoughts, Jake burst into the room, his innocence a stark contrast to Sarah's troubled mind. "Mom! Can we play soccer in the backyard?" He beamed, his energy a reminder of the joy that still existed in their lives. "Sure, buddy. Just let me get my shoes on," she replied, forcing a smile. Watching him run around, hair tousled and laughter spilling from his lips, made her heart ache with both love and fear. She wanted to protect this joy at all costs. After a vigorous session of kicking the soccer ball back and forth, Jake collapsed onto the grass, breathless but happy. "Mom, you're the best soccer player," he exclaimed, admiration shining in his eyes. Her heart swelled at his words, but the underlying fear gnawed at her. What if he doesn't understand? She thought. The burden of impending truths felt heavy, as if it might shatter the joyful facade they had built together. Later that evening, as she tucked Jake into bed, the weight of her reality pressed down on her once more. "Mom, why are you so quiet tonight?" he asked, eyes heavy with sleep. "I'm just thinking, sweetheart," she replied, smoothing his hair. She wanted to share everything, but words failed her. In that moment, she made a promise to herself: she would be stronger for him, clearer in her intentions. If she was going to invite Daniel into their lives, she needed to frame it in a way that honored Jake's feelings. As she found herself pacing again, there was a palpable tension in the air, thick with anticipation. She felt an unexpected whisper of empowerment, a realization that she could shape the narrative moving forward. Perhaps she could prepare Jake for the meeting with Daniel by nurturing the values of honesty, resilience, and understanding. Co-parenting required an unlearning of fear and an acceptance of the potential for joy. Yet, doubts loomed large. The thought of meeting with Daniel again left her tangled in a web of emotions. What if he wasn't equipped to handle the complexities of parenthood? What if he tried to reclaim authority without truly understanding the essence of being a father? The very notion unsettled her. The next day, as she sat down with a notebook, she began to jot down her thoughts, ways to approach the conversation, strategies to prepare Jake, aspects to gently broach with Daniel. The clarity that emerged from writing provided a semblance of calm, if only momentarily. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, jolting her from her reverie. The sound reverberated through the house, a symbol of unresolved situations rushing back to the forefront of her life. Daniel. With a quick inhale, she rose to her feet, her mind racing. The meeting was upon her, and she realized she had a choice to make. Would she share her meticulously crafted plan, or allow the conversation to unfold in its raw, unpredictable glory? The hesitation gripped her as she turned the doorknob, bracing for whatever awaited her on the other side. The moment she opened the door, she felt the gravity of their past swirl around them. How would this moment shape the future, especially for Jake? "Sarah," Daniel began, his gaze steady yet searching, words hanging delicately in the air between them. She took a deep breath, ready to confront the chaos and the possibility ahead. Today would be a turning point, but the path was still uncertain. Would they find their way together, or would their histories fracture the fragile trust she was trying to build? With those thoughts swirling, she stepped forward, determined to face the moment head-on. There was no turning back now. Sarah caught the glint of surprise in Daniel's eyes as he stood at her doorstep, a fleeting shadow of admiration failing to mask the weight of their complicated past. The feigned confidence she had summoned began to wobble, threatening to collapse under the scrutiny of his gaze. She wanted to set the terms of their encounter. She needed him to understand that this wasn't just about them, it was about Jake. "Come in," she said, gesturing into the warmth of her home that suddenly felt far too intimate. As Daniel stepped inside, a transition occurred. The casual familiarity of their past folded into the gravity of the moment, each second stretching like a taut string ready to snap. "Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation," he started, his voice steady but edged with uncertainty. "About Jake. I realize I haven't been there. I want to change that." The sincerity in his tone struck a chord within her. Was this the step toward redemption, or merely a passing fancy fueled by nostalgia and guilt? "Change is a big word, Daniel," she replied, feeling the urge to navigate this discussion with caution. "It's not just about wanting to be a father, it's about being prepared for what that truly means." She observed his demeanor, the tick of his jaw, the slight tightening of his hands, and felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps he was ready to confront the realities of parenthood. But then again, perhaps he was still the man who had walked away all those years ago. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, his eyes narrowing, as if searching for truth within her response. "But I want to be present. I want to know him." That desire echoed in the chambers of her heart. It was what she had longed to hear, yet layers of doubt clouded her judgment. "It's easy to say what you want when it's abstract," she challenged. "What have you done to prepare for this? To really engage in Jake's life?" Daniel didn't falter but stepped forward, his intensity not diminishing. "I've been researching. I want to learn. I want to meet him on his terms, Sarah. I won't rush in and demand anything. I just want the chance." A small sense of relief washed over her. His words, though compelling, came with an underlying tone of unease she couldn't ignore. Was he capable of nurturing the bond they would need moving forward? As she considered his plea, Sarah wrestled with the emotions that had defined her motherhood. The fear of Jake being hurt, of discovering he had been kept from his father, came flooding back. "You can't just come into our lives and expect everything to be okay," she admitted, an urgency wrapping around her throat. "You need to understand how it affects him and me." The tension shifted as Daniel nodded, his arms crossed, as if shielding himself from her piercing gaze. "What do you suggest?" She inhaled deeply, preparing to speak from the heart. "It starts with communication. We can't keep Jake in the dark. I'll need to bring him into this conversation, but I can't do it alone. I need to know what you are willing to commit to." Her words hung between them, charged with the possibility of a future she had only dared to imagine. There was a chance for connection, but the responsibility weighed heavily. Would he understand the depth of that commitment? "Let us do it together," he proposed, sincerity glinting in his eyes. "I'll prove to you I'm serious. No more running away." That simple declaration sent a shiver through her core. Could they really forge a new beginning? But an unsettling thought crept in: how much did she trust him? How could she reconcile her past feelings of betrayal with the hope of a possible partnership in parenthood? The walls of her modest home seemed to close in on her as the moment stretched on. She realized then that she was standing at a precipice, faced with decisions that would alter not only her life but Jake's as well. What would it mean if she opened the door to this piece of their history? What if it led to heartbreak once again? "Let us take it one step at a time," she replied finally, her heart racing. "We can meet Jake together, but everything must be transparent. Any hidden agendas or reluctance, and this won't work." Daniel nodded in agreement, the weight of shared responsibility settling around them like a fragile truce. Just then, the thought of Jake burst into her mind again. But what if he resists? What if he doesn't want to know you? The question hung ominous in the air, laced with a reality they both had to face. The last thing Sarah wanted was to watch her son struggle with yet another change, yet the stakes were higher than they had ever been. As Daniel opened his mouth to respond, a sudden realization struck Sarah: this would not only test the bonds between them but also the very foundation of her ability to navigate this unpredictability. The hardest battles often lead to the greatest victories, she thought, bracing herself for the task ahead. With that awareness, she felt a surge of resolve. But just as they spoke, Jake's laughter echoed from the backyard, a reminder that someone innocent was entirely unaware of the unfolding drama. The very thought filled her with both dread and determination. "Can we let him know today?" Daniel asked, a hint of eagerness mingled with uncertainty. Sarah hesitated, the tension palpable. If they were to do this, it had to be handled delicately. "Only if we're both ready to handle his reaction," she cautioned. As she glanced back at Daniel, their eyes locked in a moment of silent agreement. The fragile bridge they had started to build felt more than just a connection to Jake; it was a chance for them, too, to rediscover who they were as individuals. Yet within that potential spark, the question lingered, ominous and unresolved. Are we ready for whatever comes next? The air hung heavy with anticipation as Sarah's gaze flickered to the backyard where Jake, blissfully unaware of the impending conversation, chased after a fluttering butterfly. The innocence of his laughter contrasted starkly with the turmoil swirling in her chest, igniting an internal battle she hadn't anticipated. "Let us take it slow," Sarah suggested, her voice steady yet soft, trying to balance the gravity of the moment with the warmth of hope. "We can talk to Jake, but we need to lay a foundation first. You and I need to be on the same wavelength." Daniel shifted his weight, the creak of the floor beneath him punctuating an uneasy silence. "What do you mean by a foundation?" he asked, genuine curiosity tinged with a hint of apprehension. "We need to agree on some basic principles. You'll have to commit to being there not just for Jake but for me too. This is a partnership, not a casual obligation." Her words were deliberate, an attempt to carve out her parameters, but beneath that surface lay an even deeper concern: could she extend her trust again? Daniel nodded, and Sarah watched him closely for signs of sincerity. His commitment had to be unmistakable, any doubt would stall progress. An inviting intensity lit his face, but she remained skeptical. She needed to ensure his past failure wouldn't tether their present. "Let us think about what Jake needs," she continued, "not just what we want. If he is to know you, he deserves to understand why you weren't around. We must frame it in a way that he can process without feeling abandoned again." She felt the weight of her own words, so often repeating them to herself, yet now being called upon to act. "Right. He needs the truth," Daniel said slowly, contemplating the implications. "But how can we present that without overwhelming him?" The pause felt interminable. Framing the truth was a daunting task for Sarah, recognizing all too well that every second could shift Jake's perception of the world he'd known. Her mind raced. She knew Jake's capacity for emotional depth and understanding in ways others overlooked. "Maybe we should consider our own experiences as a guide," she suggested cautiously. "What led us here? What lessons have we learned that could clarify things for him?" With a flicker of determination, she found herself momentarily hopeful. As they continued to brainstorm, Sarah realized she hadn't fully acknowledged her own evolving feelings. The mere thought of Daniel having any role in Jake's life both comforted and terrified her. This iteration of Daniel was different, more seasoned, mature, but still tethered to the previous pain. "Do you truly believe you can embrace this responsibility?" Sarah pressed, her voice dropping lower. "Because Jake has been through so much. If we're going to do this, you need to face everything, not just the joy but the overwhelming pressure it may bring." Daniel met her gaze with unexpected intensity, revealing the vulnerability he rarely displayed. "I can't promise there won't be obstacles," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But I am willing to confront them. It's the right thing for Jake." Her heart raced at his admission, each beat echoing the growing realization that they were no longer simply two people driven by unresolved feelings. They were about to forge a path as co-parents, an uncharted territory fraught with challenges. His commitment to facing Jake's past, his authenticity shining through, shifted something pivotal within her, an inkling of trust beginning to unfurl within her guarded heart. Yet, with that trust came caution. Would it be enough to shield her from the hurt that had marred their past? How would she feel if he faltered again? The memory of the pain lingered just beneath the surface, and Sarah grappled to protect herself while yearning for that connection. "Let us bring him into it," Daniel encouraged, his energy igniting a spark of courage in her. "When we're all together, we can clear the air, and we won't have to hide anymore." The prospect of facing that moment head-on sent a shiver of resolve coursing through her. She had always been the protector, the decided, the one keeping the walls fortified. Yet, standing here with Daniel, she felt the unexpected urge to venture into the unknown. "Okay," she agreed, breath catching as anxiety transformed into anticipation. "Let us go find him." As they stepped toward the door leading to the backyard, a wave of determination washed over her. This might truly mark the beginning of their transformation. However, as they stepped outside, Sarah's heart sank at the realization they might be opening a Pandora's box. Would Jake respond with understanding, or would pain rise once again, complicating their fragile connection? The moment Jake turned to face them, curiosity sparking in his eyes, Sarah took a steadying breath. "Here goes nothing," she whispered, stepping into the unknown that awaited. Would they be ready for what lay ahead? Would they make it through together? In that instant, Sarah knew the answers hinged not on what Daniel had to offer, but on her own willingness to re-engage even when the stakes had never felt higher. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden rays across the backyard, Sarah felt her heart pounding. She and Daniel stood side by side, their gazes drawn to Jake, who was obliviously meandering between the flowers, chasing yet another butterfly. It was a perfect, serene moment, one that felt worlds apart from the fraught discussions they had just shared. "Now?" Daniel whispered, the uncertainty evident in his voice. "Yes. Now," Sarah affirmed, a wave of resolute clarity washing over her. Her mind raced through possible scenarios, but the dread of inaction was heavier than any worst-case outcome that could surface. This was their moment, as uncertain as it was. "Jake!" Daniel called softly, causing their son to spin around with a look of pure delight. The shift in their energy felt electric, crackling with unspoken hopes and fears. Jake's eyes lit up as he caught sight of Daniel. The air hummed with potential. "Dad!" Jake exclaimed, the words seeming to spark light across his features. Daniel smiled, genuine warmth spreading through him at his son's exuberance. For a fleeting moment, Sarah felt a deep sense of relief. Perhaps this reunion would be easier than expected. "Can we play together?" Jake asked, darting to Daniel, his exuberance unfiltered. Sarah saw the connection form, a natural bond coursing through him that had been dormant before now. Her heart warmed with hope. Daniel nodded enthusiastically. "Of course. What do you want to play?" "Soccer," Jake suggested, bouncing on the balls of his feet. With a mix of eagerness and trepidation, the two raced off toward the makeshift goal they had erected earlier that day. Sarah watched from the sidelines, a surge of emotion swelling in her chest. This was what she had envisioned, a family unit reconnecting, but the still looming shadows of their past remained restless in her thoughts. Yet, witnessing Daniel engage with Jake brought an unexpected sense of empowerment. His presence was affirming he was stepping up and proving he desired to be part of their lives. The dynamic between the three of them began to shift, creating a new reality, one filled with hope and potential. In that moment, as she shouted encouragement from the sidelines, Sarah realized she was witnessing an evolution not just in Daniel, but in herself as well. She had once fervently feared inviting him back into their lives, so consumed by doubt that it colored her perception. Now, however, she felt the tide of change washing over her, urging her to step out of the shadows and embrace the light. Their laughter punctuated the air, reawakening lost pieces of joy that had lain buried beneath years of solitude and struggle. Even in the midst of uncertainty, she felt a rhythm returning, a pulse of vibrant life flowing through their makeshift family unit. "Sarah!" Daniel called, panting and laughing as he approached her, Jake in tow. "You've got to join in." A spark of excitement flickered inside her. Could it be that simple? Could the past truly be transformed by a single choice to engage openly and embrace vulnerability? Stepping forward into the space they were creating felt risky, but within that risk lay an extraordinary opportunity for genuine connection. With a laugh, she kicked off her shoes and sprinted into the fray, intent on joining the fun. Each swift kick of the ball became a metaphor for her own journey, heartfelt, exhilarating, and ever so freeing. No longer holding back, she let herself be swept along in the joyous chaos, feeling the weight of her fears gradually dissipate with every laughter-filled moment. The sun dipped below the horizon, splashing colors across the sky like a canvas, a new beginning painted with the shades of their shared experience. As the game wound down, Sarah caught Daniel's eyes, a silent agreement passing between them. This was a pivotal moment, one filled with promise and potential. "Jake," do you want to know something really important? Sarah finally asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the words yet to come. Jake, catching his breath, turned his wide eyes toward her. Curiosity etched on his youthful face. Daniel stepped closer, nodding in encouragement. We want to tell you a story that shows how much you're loved, buddy. Sarah took a deep, grounding breath, feeling the surge of fulfillment from knowing she was ready to navigate this delicate moment with care. Within her began to blossom a solid confidence in both herself and Daniel, an assurance that together they could create a path for Jake filled with openness and understanding. Jake, she said with all the warmth she could muster, there is something we need to share with you about your father. Fear and anticipation blended seamlessly as she took that brave step. Everything they'd been through had led to this moment, this opportunity to build a future grounded in truth. We're here together to show you something real, Daniel added, his voice strong. As she looked at the faces of her son and the man she had once known and hoped to know again, Sarah felt a profound sense of growth. She had confronted her fears, she had endured countless sleepless nights, she had fought for her and Jake's happiness. And now, as they stood on the precipice of a new beginning, she knew that this was only the start of a transformative journey, one rich with heart, intention, and unwavering love. The path ahead might be uncertain, challenging, and yet undeniably beautiful. With a steadiness she hadn't known before, Sarah grasped the magnitude of her choice, ready to embrace the adventure of motherhood, partnership, and healing. It was then, in that moment of silent clarity, she allowed hope to fill her heart, confident that, together, they would navigate whatever came next. Now, it is your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.